Hey guys, today I'll be bringing you something completely different than my typical Moog videos here. And this has been a side project. This has been one of those projects I've been working on for quite a while, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it sitting in the background behind my other videos all last year. But what we have here is a very rare Oberheim OB-1. And it's just a great little synthesizer, and it's got some really cool history with it. And it's going to be for sale for anybody that's interested. So this actually belongs to one of my friends by the name of David Ewing, who was actually the keyboard player for Brenda Lee, the country singer. You heard right. Country singers did use synthesizers behind them. So it's kind of a cool history here. I think David, he primarily used a Prophet 5 with a piano, of course, but this was one of his other synths in his arsenal he would use as needed, and it's just a cool little synth. But this is actually an interesting design too. I'll kind of bring up what you're looking at here for those that don't know. So what the OB-1 is, you can kind of think of it of a digitally controlled SEM module. So we have two oscillators just like SEM, the VCF, two envelope generators, etc. One LFO. So it's very similar in layout to a SEM module. The difference is like I had mentioned, it's digitally controlled. So it's all VCO, so you can think of it just like a Moog source. It's VCOs, it's VCF, it's got the envelope generators, but all the knobs are referenced to a digital board or programmer board in this thing. And then it actually has a DAC, so it actually does a digital analog conversion to make digital signals into CV to control the oscillators and stuff. That's kind of how this works. And so that's kind of what we have here. But the circuits are very similar to SEM. The VCOs are very similar in construction to the SEM. The only big difference is that the filter has a 4-pole mode instead of just a 2-pole mode like what you find in the actual SEM module. So you got an option of a little bit different harmonic content there. But that's really about it. And then you got presets, which is where the digital side comes in. And what makes this thing so interesting, and actually quite a challenge for me to fix, was that it doesn't use any microprocessors. It's not using, Z80 processors, it's not using Intel processors, it's not using any of that. It's actually using a programmer made up of 4,000 logic chips, 4,000 series logic chips. So it's very complex, especially when you get into troubleshooting, and you have to really study things out a little bit to understand what it's doing. But I finally got that all fixed. That was the primary issue with this, was the programmer, and it also had some oscillator problems too, oscillator 1 in particular. But when I got this thing in, it was dead. It didn't do anything. It had a short on the 15-volt rail, and so took care of the shorts, the problem with the short, which was actually tantalum capacitors, which are known to short out when they get old, especially in ARPs. It's a very similar thing in ARP synthesizers. So that was number one. And then once I got the voltage rails up, well, I quickly realized that the actual programmer had problems. The clock, so they got a clock circuit, it wasn't working. So I started there, fixed the clock. Then I got it running. It was actually kind of working. And then it failed again. I had other problems fail. So it ended up being like a game of whack-a-mole. I'd fix one thing, something else would pop up. So what I ended up doing, because they're still all available, is I went on and bought all new logic chips for this thing. And I just rebuilt the programmer completely. So it's been completely rebuilt, with the exception of the static round chip in there, which is really rare. But it was still good, so I had no problem with the static round chip. But I also want to give a shout out too to Bob at Tauntek, because he has taken the time to actually make a program board, a modern program board. You can drop in these things, give you a lot more presets and all that kind of stuff. And I actually bought it and assembled it, and I used it as a debugging circuit for this unit. We decided to keep the original programmer board in it, just keep it original, because I got this one working really well. But it was just kind of a really nice feature. But also Bob has taken the time to actually make a reference designator for most of the ICs on the boards. That's something that Oberheim is terrible at. They never gave you reference designators for these earlier synthesizers. Even the SEM is the same way. You have schematics, but you don't have any layout really of what you're looking at on the board. So it really makes it hard to troubleshoot these things in some cases. So shout out to you, Bob. Really do appreciate you taking the time to make all that for us technicians out here. But anyways, I'll just give you a walk around real quick, kind of show you what this thing looks like. I cleaned it up really good. And what's also interesting is it's using capacitive touch for the presets. So you have 8 presets, and you can see they're just capacitive touch. And you'll actually hear it in the audio when I touch these things. You actually kind of hear it bleed to the camera. It's just the mixer and stuff, I believe, that's making it really show up. It's just we're hitting a frequency that's very similar to the mixer over here. But so it's got presets. I actually built some custom presets in this thing. But you can see I took all the knobs off, cleaned everything up really good. Took the keyboard apart, new key bushings, aligned the keyboard. So it's got all new key bushings, etc. here. And it just looks really good. It's just a really clean example of an OB-1 here. It's got a few little marks, a few little blemishes here and there, because it was, gigged with. It was toured with. So you had probably some notes and stuff here. I think there's one other spot like right here, where you can see where something was at one point. And I didn't want to get too rough with this thing because I didn't want to pull off the screen printing. So I kind of left some of that. Some of the paint's chipped, you can see, just normal stuff there. But got wooden side panels all the way through. So these are actually wooden side panels. They actually look like a fold-up table with this rubber trim on it like that. If I take you around back, just kind of let you see the back. I know a lot of you have seen this over the past year here. But you can just see the back panel here. And this is serial number 246, so 0246. So I don't know if that's the 246 unit built or how they actually go about serializing these things. But power cord's in great shape, as you can see. Power switch still works great. It has the light, the pilot light in it. And once again, just a few little blemishes you'll see here and there, because it is vintage. But just kind of walk you around here. Same thing on this end. Got the wooden side panel. Once again, you can see a little tape residue there. But overall, it's really, really, really clean. And actually, I still got the bottom cover off this thing. I'm going to flip it up and I'll show you what's inside this thing for those that are curious. Alright, I got this thing flipped up here. I'm just going to show you the inside of it real quick. So we'll start down here at the bottom. This is your programmer board. This is the board I rebuilt. And it's all new chip sets. Like I say, it was one of those things. I kept fixing one thing, have another chip fail, and chasing Boolean logic, it can get very tiresome. And when you just know these chips failed, the 4000 series chips are just known for failure anyways. So I just wanted to rebuild it and put a new memory battery in there. And you can see I was able to actually reuse the original bracket for the battery. But I'll show you the battery that came out of it. It had actually leaked out everywhere, and it heavily corroded the bracket. So what I was able to neutralize the acid, and I took a rotary tool, and originally this would have terminals coming up, and it actually held the battery as a battery holder. And so I cut the terminals off the ends of them because they were way too far gone to use. And I found this nice battery here, which has the wires already pre-manufactured on the battery, and I brought it down and actually shrink wrapped it and soldered it into the harness right here. So we've got wire and everything there. So that's the battery. So I was really happy to be able to reuse that bracket. You can see a little rust on it, but I was able to clean it up, neutralize all the acid, and so it's all safe there now. So that's the program board, the memory battery. That's what holds your presets when you turn it off. Then we move on up. So this is your oscillators right here. This is the actual 2 oscillators right there. And then we go on up here and you can see the filter. So here's your filter right here. And it's kind of interesting because the Roland filter, like in the SH7, is very similar to this filter. So I don't know who stole who, but the Roland filter is very similar. But the difference between this and the SEM is you can see that you have these op-amps with resonant capacitors here. Well, you can see there's 4 sets in this one. In the SEM, there's only 2. So if we were to cover up these 2, you'd only have those 2 right there. That's how they did the 2 to 4 pole filter design. So they just added an extra 2 stages to it. Up here, you can see all these new capacitors here, these red caps. That's actually the demux circuitry. And for those that don't know, I explain the demux circuitry like the hands of the computer. So what happens is when you change one of those knobs on the front, you know, it's digital, so it comes down here to the board here. It has a simple digital analog converter. And then it goes over here and it goes to the multiplexers of all these circuitries, and it goes to whichever one you command. So for example, we'll say oscillator 1 frequency control. So we turn the frequency control knob. Well, one of these caps right here is responsible for charging up and holding the CV voltage for that control. So the DAC will come over here and go to that signal to addressing. It'll hold that memory in that cap, and it's called sample and hold memory, just like a keyboard circuit. That, you know, when you off a key, it holds that voltage for the oscillator to stay at that frequency. This does exactly the same thing, so that it frees up the DAC to go other places and do other things. Well, that sits there and holds that sample memory, and that's how it works. So each of these is representing a CV voltage for a control of the analog circuitry. So it's pretty cool. So like I said, it's like the hands of the computer when you think about it. But anyways, that's the look at the inside here. And I do have a date in it here. You can see the keyboard was made, it looks like January 5th, 1978. It's when this actual keypad was made. And I just gave it a good service. I didn't really go through the whole J wires and everything. I cleaned it up. But you will see a few J wires that's been repaired that was done previously, but they're done really well. They're soldered in there really good. And so I just didn't mess with them. But I did replace the key bushings. I did pull the key caps off, wash them, clean them up really good, and just reassemble the keyboard. So that's been done as well. And I did align the J wires so they trigger correctly. So that's been done. But I just want to give you guys a good look at the inside. I can also show you the headache of troubleshooting, because I got one little bit of schematics here that I had. You can see I was working on the oscillator there as well. So you can see all my notes and trying to figure out what all it is. But also, talking of the demux, you can actually see here, like we have, whoops, too far out, frequency 1, so OF1. That's representing a actual demux control feature. So that would be one of those caps, sample and hold memory caps, through a buffer. They would actually set that voltage into the oscillator. So that was something I was troubleshooting. You can see I was making my guide here. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of testing, a lot of repairs. I had a noisy oscillator 1, and it was really noisy. It had like staticky noise on the waveforms, and then it was erratic. It would waver really bad in frequency. And when I recapped the the sample and hold caps, it seemed to clean it up. So I believe I have it fixed. It hadn't really showed back up, but I can't guarantee anything, you know, as far as if that shows back up. And so I don't really know. I dug in as far as I could. I did take care of the waveform noise, which you can see is a bad 301, LM301, which I put a new op amp there for that one, a can style. So it's actually even better than the little DILT package. But you can kind of see the frustrations that goes through, you know, all the troubleshooting on these things. So it's not just, you know, replace parts and say, oh, it's good. It's actually, you know, you have to get down to these things. You can see all the old parts. So these are all the old chipsets and everything that came in this thing. And I've replaced one of the connectors. That's the one for the battery. I just hardwired it because that connector was so corroded that the upper half of it was so bad, I just pulled it off and just put it in the wire straight to the board. So you don't have to worry about vibrations, losing your presets. But anyways, let me set this thing back down. I know it's a little information. I hope you guys aren't too bored with this. But let me put this thing back down. I'll make you guys a sound demo. Alright, so anyways, we're going to start with this one with oscillator 1. I'll go through the oscillators, the filter, the envelope generators, etc. here. Just kind of show you what we got here. But you can, like I say, you can think of this thing as a SEM module. It's just digitally controlled. So it's got the little controller, the programmer. And then we've got a 2-pole or 4-pole filter on this one is mentioned, where I believe the SEM is only a 2-pole. So this gives you a little bit more range of the filter, so to speak. So anyways, we'll start with oscillator 1 here. And we'll start with sawtooth. I'll go through the waveform, the frequency, show you that everything's functioning here. So we'll start by going down the keyboard here. So it's just oscillator 1 only. We got the waveform, so when we're in sawtooth, you got a sawtooth or square wave selection here. We're in sawtooth, the waveform control actually goes from a sawtooth to a triangular wave. As you can hear. Then we got square wave, which basically will change the duty cycle of the pulse of the square wave. You can go almost to 0 pulse width. So square wave. Go back here. And there's your sawtooth. So that's your waveform. We got the frequency control. And of course you can hear how this is digitally referenced. You'll hear the zippering as you turn the knobs. So there's your frequency control. We got the modulation. So we can do modulation, or we can do pulse width control. So pulse width modulation, we'll set our pulse width here. Go to waveform. And there's your pulse width modulation off the LFO. The other things we have in this oscillator is we have a sub-oscillator, which you can change the volume. You can either change the volume of the fundamental, which is actually the VCO. So as you can hear, I can go -3 decibels or full on. As you can hear. Then we got the sub-oscillator, which like I mentioned in my other videos, like with the micro Moog, etc. It's just a divider circuit that divides off the master oscillator. Same thing here, you got -3 decibels or on. It's basically just 1 octave below the VCO. And also you got a cross mod here, which I'll come back to that here in a minute after I show VCO2. Because there's actually 2 other functions that kind of share between the 2 oscillators. So VCO2, we got oscillator 1 off now, so you can hear nothing. We'll bring up VCO2. So here's just VCO2. And same thing, we got the waveform. We can turn it to a triangular wave. Go to square wave. So there's your waveform there. Same thing here, we got the frequency control. So there's your frequency control. And then we got the modulation section. And the modulation section has a few more options here from VCO2. So you got your frequency control from the LFO. Same thing here, we can change the waveform of the... Same thing there. But in this case, we can switch over to envelope, and it's going to look at VCF, the VCF envelope, and actually form a shape off that. So we'll go... with oscillator 1. You can hear it there, or we can go back to LFO. So there's the LFO controlling the modulation of VCO2. So now we're back just in VCO2 here. And you got the same thing here too. You got another sub-oscillator. So it's the same kind of concept. So there's that. So now we'll combine both oscillators again. I just changed waveforms back to sawtooth there. You can hear how accurate those oscillators are. They're a little beating between them, but not bad. So that's the oscillators. Now we'll go back and I'll show you a few other features between the oscillators. So first of all, we got oscillator sync. So we can turn oscillator 1 off. We'll actually put this thing back in envelope for the go back to square wave here. So you hear the oscillator sync there. Now we'll go back here and turn that back down. We'll go back to sawtooth on both of these. And I'll show you the cross mod. So turn oscillator 1 on only. And what this does is it actually brings oscillator 2 frequency back into VCO1 and actually makes the oscillator ring off VCO2. So you get some really crazy sounds there. And then we'll just put a little bit of doubling on both oscillators here too, so or the sub-oscillator. And you can actually hear how everything kind of sounds mixed in the oscillators here as a musical instrument. And I'm going to move over here to the keyboard section real quick because we actually have an octave up and an octave down. Right now we're in the middle octave. So if we go up an octave, so you can hear how that works. We got portamento. I'm going to turn the doubling back off so now you're hearing both oscillators together again. So that's the portamento. So there's your basically your pitch control there. We've also got the bend. We can go broad. So there's the bend. You also got modulation, which injects noise into your You can also assign it just for one oscillator only. So there's your bend and your keyboard. So that's pretty much your pitch control there. Now we'll turn the oscillators off. We'll move to the filter section. So now the filter, like mentioned, is very similar to the SCM filter. The only difference is you got a 4-pole version as well. So they've added an extra 2 stages to this filter, where I think the SCM is only a 2-pole. So you get a 4-pole in this one, but you can hear how the filter sounds. So oscillators are off. Make this thing self-oscillate. So that's the filter tracking the keyboard. We can turn tracking off. So it's just a set frequency there. We've got 4-pole right now. We can go 2-pole. You hear a little bit more distortion in the 2-pole. It's a little bit more harsh. The 4-pole is a little bit more smooth. That's how I kind of explain the filter. But we got the frequency control. I won't go too high on that because I know that can hurt your ears really quick in the on the camera here. But we got LFO. So we got that. We also got the envelope control, just like we have in oscillator 2. And this is actually where it's using the VCF envelope generator to inject it into the filter. So now we'll bring up an oscillator. There's 4-pole. So that's 2-pole. Now we're in 4-pole. So that's kind of how the filter sounds with harmonics through it. We'll actually close these oscillators back off here. I'm going to turn this filter back on and show you the envelope real quick. You've heard it a little bit there, but we'll go in and go through it here. Actually, let me turn that off. Let me turn the... This filter will hurt you really quick. So you can kind of think of this, if you're thinking of Moog like I typically demo, the modulation control when it's an envelope is like the amount of contour, or amount of envelope into the filter. So basically that's kind of how this knob here works. So we'll set everything to 0. Here's just a click. Bring up the decay. And this thing has really long envelopes. So that's your decay, here's your attack. going to turn key track up. That might help with that frequency. So as your attack, we got the sustain level, so everything's set back to 0. So you can hear it actually sets how low the decay goes. So we put a little decay on that. Here it drops all the way to 0. As you can hear. Then we got the release time. So actually we'll go here and so now you can hear the release. And that's the filter section. I know it's probably hard on your ears there. This thing has a really self-oscillation is just killer on this thing. So now we'll bring up the oscillators again. We'll open up this filter. So now we'll actually go through and I'll show you that the VCA envelope works. Set everything to 0. Here's just a click. We'll bring up the attack. So there's your attack. We got the decay. There's your decay. We got the sustain level. As you can hear, when I have a little bit of decay on there, sustain at 0. It goes immediately out. We can bring up the sustain a little bit and you'll get a little bit of hold behind that. So that's how that works. Then we got the release. So if we set a little bit of decay there, bring up the release time. You can see if I left a key, we actually got some. And same thing here, it's got a really long release time there. So we'll get this thing set back up here. And then we got the programmable volume. So what this is kind of like the knob on a memory Moog. So when you got that programmable volume, this is actually when you save presets, this is actually a volume that is saved. So you can actually make your presets quieter or softer or louder depending on how you're wanting to make the preset stand out. If it's a lead or a backing piece, you could save your programmable volume and you could have your volume preset. So you didn't have to come over here and turn down your master volume if you wanted to quieten down one of the presets. So I'll go over here right quick and just show you, I think I showed you the Portamento Glide. I will show you the LFO right quick. I hadn't really showed you that. So we're going to go back to one oscillator here. So here's oscillator 1 only. So we've actually got sine wave, square wave, and then we got sample and hold. And then we've also got the rate. So that's your rate. And we've also got a delay, which is really nice. We can turn this delay up. As you can hear. Now something else I want to show you real quick too, I almost forgot about, is this envelope reset switch over here. So this is kind of like the decay switch on a mini Moog. So right now you can see my alpha key. We got that release time. We can hit the switch here and we don't have the release. And that's how that switch there works. So that's really the synth. It's a pretty simple little synth, but like I say, it's a really cool synth. It's really rare, And it's neat how they incorporated digital with analog in this particular synth. But anyways, I'll go through presets now. So here's preset 1. Now these are all ones I built. That's got a nice kind of filter. I've got it fixed where it's doing a harmonic sweep, and if you put just a little bit of effect on that, I'm going to put just a little effect on that one preset, and it sounds like this right here. Really great sound. A lot of these synths, they sound pretty basic until you put them in a mix and start adding a little bit of effect to them. So that's preset 1. Here's preset 2. This is using the envelope of oscillator 2 and actually giving us a nice little envelope follower. There's that one, and what's nice about that is you can see I can hold in the key and it won't reset the envelope till I reset the key. So I can keep a key pressed while I play and it won't re-trigger the envelope. So it's kind of a neat little effect there. Oscillator, here's preset 3 I built. It's a really nice kind of like delayed modulation. One other note I need to bring up too real quick. You'll see that these knobs are black. They have a little black cap on them. And then you got some that are gray. The black ones actually cannot be edited when you're in presets. That's the only big drawback to the synthesizer. So for example, right now I'm in preset 3. If I turn a frequency knob or anything, it's not going to do anything, as you can see. But I still have the LFO active, the portamento active. We've also got this little VCF sweep, which is kind of a nice little knob there too. But that's preset 3, preset 4. Then we got preset 5. This is kind of a Moog bass. Kind of a Moog bass kind of sound. We go down an octave. So really cool sounding bass there. Preset 6. Just a cool oscillator sync patch there. And then we got preset 7. You can actually hear the the capacitive touch buttons as I touch this thing. You can hear the digital processing in the audio. This is just a really cool sound, kind of like a there's that, and then I've got one that's just a filter. This is one of those that sounds really good with a little effect. Put a little glide on that. and it reacts to your transpose. So anyways, you can hear how that sounds, and that's the presets. You got 8 presets in this thing, and that's really all you have. But like I say, we kept the original programmer to keep it original, since I got that thing all rebuilt. And I think whoever ends up with this thing will be very, very happy with it. It's just a really great little synth, a really rare synth, and it's been a real pleasure working on this thing for you, David. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you watching, and there'll be more to come here very soon. Take care.